Have you ever wanted to experience what it's like to be a prey animal?
What the You Oh, what the No. You
What about developing a fear of drowning through reverse exposure therapy?
Keep going, we're right there. Please, do not drown.
Or how about meeting an elder god only for him to chokeslam you into a wall with force powers because you accidentally threw a spear into his general vicinity?
You prick!
All this and more can be experienced in Rain World, an open-world survival sim released in 2017. A game that I, after spending 22 hours beating once, still barely understand, largely due to the fact that the game takes 5 minutes at the start to teach you basic controls, then tells you, "Nice job, champ. You know how to survive out there in this beautiful world. Now, go out there and find your way." If you've lived in the real world before, or at least have a frontal lobe more developed than your average streamer,
Can I eat this? Oh. Whoa, what the
then this is your first hint of just how bad things are going to be for you. If you haven't played Monsoon Lands before, I'd recommend trying it out first, as it is best experienced completely blind. After you spent hours scraping by on your first playthrough, and have witnessed the 20-minute long ending, where you hold the down button, you can come back to this video where I won't answer any of your questions because I am just as confused as you. The story of Precipitation Earth begins with you and your nuclear family traveling together and braving the harsh ruins of what can only be discerned as modern-day Detroit. Suddenly, an unexpected rainstorm hits, separating you from your family and leaving you alone and abandoned in the outskirts of the city. From here, you are free to explore to your heart's content, as long as you can avoid the local wildlife that has overtaken the city after society has collapsed. There are many mutated varieties of both fauna and flora that will maim or kill you, either to eat or for sport. Almost everything is hostile, but will still follow the rules of, if it is smaller than me, I can eat it. Axolotl gator hybrids are your most common threat, having most likely come from the local zoo after the collapse. They are rather invasive and show up everywhere that isn't actively underwater. They come in many flavors such as grape, blueberry, orange, and saltine. All of them have different abilities, so you'll have to experiment to see what each can do. Other threats include death birds from Elden Ring, living seaweed, and God's Mistake. My personal favorite is this delightful being. But, Eleazar, isn't this just a pole? No, it's a mimic. And you've just fallen for it, 5 times in a row. With so many things attempting to kill you, this might seem unfair. It is, but so is being born as these bats, which actively choose to fly into my open palm for me to eat. What I'm trying to say is, you have it rough, but at least you have more of a brain to work with, right? Knowledge is power, especially in the world of Aquaterra, and given that all slug cats are born with the ultimate tool, opposable thumbs, they can utilize things in their environment to their advantage as long as they know how to. See this? What do you think it is? A squid? Wrong. This is an edible smoke grenade. What about this thing? A silkworm? No, that is a grappling hook. And this is bird bait. Everything can be manipulated if you have the knowledge. After a while of exploring, you'll eventually come across the locals. Having faced total societal collapse, the intelligent life has reverted to hunter-gatherer lifestyles, and to them, you don't look very gatherable. However, with knowledge on our side and cash money, scavengers can be turned to our side. Just try to avoid accidentally killing them when you go to hand them the goods. On top of being able to earn favor in exchange for coin, they can also be traded with using currency, and grant you access to weapons you can't get elsewhere without mugging or stealing them. This includes both explosive spears, as well as just high explosives, which you probably won't realize are explosive until it's too late. Personally, I don't respect the scavengers. Sure, when needed, I will pay the necessary road tax, but out in the open, they're prey like any other to me. Not because they are worth killing, no, because they have a vendetta. While normally, they will avoid you at all cost. A number of times, scavengers have actively run towards me, sucker punching me unconscious and stealing my items. This was funny the first time, not the following 5 times that it happened. So, as retribution, they learn to fear the beast inside. Let's talk areas. Most locations in, hold up. Drizzle Globe are separated into their own ecosystems. featuring their own types of unique creatures. Similarly, most areas also have unique conditions or obstacles that affect them and range from manageable to delete your save and start over. Quick note, if you are playing as any Slugcat variant besides Monk and haven't been to an area yet, make sure you know what the area is about before resting, because if you die, there's a decent chance of getting stuck in the current area because your karma level just dropped below the threshold to leave. What is karma level? A gameplay mechanic mainly used to determine what areas you can and can't get to. Since you need to have a certain level to enter different areas, if the area you just entered and saved in doesn't have easy access to food, good luck trying to get out of the gate that requires a high level, because your only way out now is to keep going forward to either find another exit or a place where you can easily get lots of food, or to restart your game. But no area can be that bad, right? Wrong. Do you know what it's like to drown in a drainage pipe 28 times in a row at the same exact location? Because I do. In fact, about 3 hours of my 23-hour total playtime was dedicated to drowning in drainage pipes. Do you have any idea what that does to a man? What happens to them after just one bad day? They restart and choose the easy mode character. Most areas you go to will initially fall into the delete your save category, but with the proper know-how, will eventually become manageable. For example, this is the Shaded Citadel. Where am I going? Where do I rest? Where is all the food? All of this can be determined with a light source. But where do you find one? Scavengers will occasionally carry light sources, which you could consider borrowing from them in exchange for your spear. There are also a number of glow rats native to the area which you can take hostage for a small light source. However, if you want a reliable way to see in the dark, all the way in the far right of the map is a robot crying alone with the capability to make you into a permanent light source. You see these drones surrounding this lonely bot? Eating them makes you glow in the dark permanently, with the only apparent downside being that you kill the robot, who you never see again anyways, after leaving their corner of the map. Also, you get an achievement for killing them, so this might as well be a free upgrade on the first playthrough. Now, trivializing dark areas is one thing. However, the majority of the map is not pitch black, and is instead loaded with wildlife. So what is the best way to deal with every other area? Silkworms. Giant bottomless pit? How about using some silk spit? Getting attacked by gators? How about swinging above all of the haters? So long as there is a wall or a ceiling to grapple to, you will have little to no problem getting anywhere, so long as it isn't submerged in water or in the sky. And speaking of being in the sky, screw both the Sky Islands and Chimney Canopies. Both of these locations are tied for second on my personal shit list of worst places I've ever had to traverse in a video game, right behind Drainage Pipe, because for some reason, the devs thought it was a good idea to make not one, but two areas filled with wildlife, pixel-perfect jumps that result in immediate unaliving if you are slightly short, and resting spots in the worst locations imaginable. The only saving grace for these zones is that Chimney Tops has a lower half with solid ground, and Sky Islands can be entirely avoided on a normal playthrough, as it is both difficult to get to and completely inconsequential to the overarching story. It would seem that the devs are fans of One Piece. There is also farm arrays. Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about this area. The gameplay kind of shows it all. This one is third on the list of worst areas, by the way. Now, after traveling around everywhere, and particularly if you've been going through the northern half of the map, you'll have at some point stumbled across one of these. Are they sentient? Maybe. Ethereal? Quite possibly. But the only thing that really matters about these things is that finding one increases your max karma, which is required to actually finish a playthrough. How many times do you need to raise it? 5 times. Sounds like a hassle? That's because raising it through these lost echo beings is the plebeian's way of raising karma. You want to know how to get your karma jacked so you can start hacking that level 10 super karma? By taking a little trip to my good old friend 5 Pebbles. My boy here will hook you up with those premium karma roids. Exploring to build up karma level slowly? Please, do I look like someone who puts in that kind of effort? Of course not. Me and everyone else who's beaten this game, it's the karma boosters from 5 Pebbles. And I know this for a fact because the achievements for finding each one of those echoes are even rarer than the achievement for beating the game. In fact, when I first talked to 5 Pebbles, he complained about how every Slugcat that ends up in these lands comes to him and how annoying it is to deal with them, which to me signals that going to 5 Pebbles for every encounter is indeed the intended and lore-accurate route to completing the game. In addition to maxing karma level, 5 Pebbles also gives directions to where you need to go to finish the game, and thankfully, the directions are not to go through drainage pipe, making him the best entity in this game by a landslide on my personal tier list. Now that you've voided your karma to the max level, you can finally finish the game. Where do you go to do that? The complete opposite corner of the map. Frustrating? Yes. Time-consuming? Yes. An enjoyable experience? Not if you're going through Sky Islands to get there, which I strongly recommend skipping by heading to the bottom of Chimney Canopy into the industrial complex instead. Going to where 5 Pebbles directs you will take you to a pit leading into the subterranean, which, well, you can figure this area out on your own. But eventually, after finding a drill at the bottom of this area, you will have reached a giant temple in the bottom of the map, which has been opened by a local fracking operation. Congratulations, your journey is officially over. Your only obstacle left is the eldritch abominations that inhabit this temple. But don't worry, so long as you have max karma and don't throw anything at them, they freely let you pass, or should in theory. You see, when I completed my first playthrough, the last guardian decided it personally had a problem with me, and politely picked me up and threw my soon-to-be corpse at Mach speed into the ground repeatedly, and continued to do so for about half a minute after I died. What did I do wrong? From my research, nothing. The only condition to pass by the guardians is to have max karma. It seems that as one last sick joke, the game decided I just wasn't worthy, and wouldn't let me complete the game. But that wouldn't stop me. No, not after 22 hours was I about to give up before finishing. So how did I get past the Guardian? Silkworms. Remember when I said that silkworms could be used to get pretty much anywhere? Well, that includes getting past the check meant to stop you from finishing the game. While normally it's impossible to get by the Guardians, there are a number of ways to skip past them. And it just so happens that the silkworm I've been carrying with me since visiting 5 Pebbles is one way to avoid them. So yes, I did cheese my playthrough by skipping the Guardians, and I feel no remorse, as the Guardians felt no remorse for me either. Once you get past, you'll end up at a lake, and I hope you enjoy holding down on the controller, because that is what you will be doing for the next 20 to 30 minutes. You go towards the light, and now you have officially completed the first run. What was the story? I don't know. Was it enjoyable? Not particularly, but it was interesting nonetheless. So this is where the video ends. Or at least should, if there wasn't so much more to talk about with this game. But before all of that, a word from today's sponsor, me. Did you know that 100% of you are not subscribed to the channel? I wonder why that is. If you've been watching this long, then that may mean that you enjoy my content. Unfortunately, it is terminal. However, it can be mitigated by subscribing. Thank you all for watching, and back to the video. Recently, there was an expansion released for Trickle Planet called Downpour, which adds an absurd amount of content that the majority of people who have played the game can't even access. This is because it is almost all locked behind finishing the game as the Hunter, and has to be enabled through the Remix mod menu. Why the devs decided to put the content into a mod configuration menu, I do not know, but this isn't the main obstacle to getting into the DLC. The Hunter exists as the base game's hard mode Slugcat. It can only be played after beating the game once. Despite being considered hard mode, the Hunter exists as the apex predator of the Slugcat verse, having the strongest throws of the base game Slugcats and subsisting off of a diet of entirely meat. If that sounds terrifying because the only meat you've been eating is the other two Slugcats are bats and worms, it is actually somewhat more manageable than the other two, as the Hunter doesn't just eat bugs, but instead feasts off of the corpses of the game's predators, filling the majority of their hunger bar with just one axolotl gator. While this means you always have to risk death to eat, it also turns the base experience on its head by role reversing predators into prey. And let's just say I have a much more enjoyable time being the hunter than the hunted. Apart from that, there are also more aggressive enemies with different mutations to deal with, and 5 Pebbles can no longer max out your karma level, so feel free to try and cheese the Guardians if you want to try out the DLC content. Once you've completed the base game as the Hunter, you can get access to 4 new Slugcats, with 2 others that can be unlocked after those, one requiring 2 others to be completed first, and the other having a series of riddles you have to solve on their Discord. Or you could just look up the solution, but honestly it's a last thing sort of Slugcat, so unlocking it won't really do you any good unless you have already done playthroughs on all the other Slugcats. Similar to the Hunter, all of these different Slugcats have different advantages and disadvantages, with a number of them also having different endings. that I won't go over here because I haven't even touched any of these slug cats myself. On top of adding new slug cats, a number of different areas and creatures are also present, plus an additional game mode called Expedition. I don't know much about this game mode, but all I had to do was read the first sentence explaining it to know that I would never touch it in my life. Now, extra content is nice and all, but also, what about all the story I didn't find? Personally, I prefer my headcanon of this being Detroit, but if you want a story, boy do I have bad news for you. If you've played, you may have run across these colored pearls every now and again, and each one of them contains a log that can be read to give some backstory. How do you read them though? Well, do you remember that robot all the way in the corner of the map who we, accidentally ate to death? That was looks to the moon, and if you don't anger them immediately, they will talk to you and extract the information within the pearls for you to read. There are about 70 logs in total, with about 65 pearls scattered around the map. The discrepancy between the number of logs and pearls is due to Sky Island's pearls having a random pool of text that can be read from them, requiring multiple playthroughs if you want them all. Also, one of these pearls starts inside of the hunter's stomach, further proving his Giga Chad nature as he consumes literal rocks for sustenance. Besides giving looks to the moon pearls, you can also give them more of the fly things surrounding them that make you glow in the dark, but I think I'll stick with being able to see, thank you. Now, I already mentioned Expedition mode, however, there are a number of other game modes that can be played primarily through the arena, which is used mostly for multiplayer features. I don't have friends masochistic enough to play this game, but if you happen to know someone gullible enough, there is a co-op mode available through Downpour for up to 4 players, which I can only imagine is an absolute clusterfuck. Additionally, there are challenges for when you've done everything else, and I do mean everything, because almost all of them are locked behind completing the game as certain slug cats and completing a total of other challenges. I've read a few comments that are around about these challenges, and the sentiment generally leans towards, yeah, they're alright. For the first 69, and let God have mercy upon all ye who enter Challenge 70. I thank whichever god made me, knowing I would be just lazy enough to never touch these. Past that, if you still want more out of this game, there is an active modding scene to fit almost any need you would have for this game. But for me, there's only 2 mods you need. The Dress My Slugcat mod to enable putting clothes on your character, and the main mod that depends on it, Dante from the Devil May Cry series, to give you the motivation to cut through all of the game's content. Also, because plugging this mod allows me to reasonably end the video with Devils Never Cry Again, making this 2 out of 3 video essays ending on peak music production. That's all I'm willing to talk about for now, as I have other projects to work on as well. Thank you all for watching, and subscribe for more on whatever it is I suddenly feel like uploading. Have a good one.